Welcome to Long Live Baseball. On today's program, we talk about all the reasons why the Cardinals suck. And we also talk about the Cubs, I guess, and all the other news and notes around the league. Today, as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mike Jones. Mike, how are you doing today?
What in the world? There's music. You said you were going to do a segment on maybe that was the countdown music. I don't know. It's like the audio is delayed to my AirPods. We're going to have to do the technology segment because it's strange.
Do you have the YouTube channel open?
Literally, no.
On your computer?
No. Literally
okay.
didn't.
All right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Maybe it's on there. Who knows? Hey, who knows? But I'm doing great. I'm doing great because I can't figure out technology. Technology always fails me.
Well, as Michael Scott once said, technology knows.
Technology knows. Speaking of Michael Scott, get this. My son sends me a picture. He says, guess who I ran into in Iowa City today? And he's got his arm around Rain, what's his name? Wilson? Rain Wilson.
Oh, for real?
Dwight Schrute, right? Yeah.
Nice.
So I just simply text back to him, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. And he just, yes, you got it right. So
nice.
Yeah.
What kind of bear is best?
Correct. You could go on and on and on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that. Yeah. I could. What was he doing? Was he just at Iowa, or what was he doing?
Yeah, I mean, great question. That's kind of what I asked him too. I said, why'd you run into how'd you run into Rain Wilson in Iowa City? And he said, I don't know. Only me and he and his cousin were the only two that recognized him, and all the other guys were like, who is that? Who is that? Mm-hmm. Who are you getting your picture taken with? Because he's kind of got a beard and glasses and so incognito, so to speak. Incognito.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I must apologize to our audience because we didn't have a show last weekend, mostly because I was covering the NFL draft, which is really cool here in Kansas City.
And, right there in your town, right there in your city.
Yeah, and I somehow they have it right here. I was able to get a media credential. They let me in the door.
That is awesome.
Without getting kicked out, like somehow shanghaied my way in. To the media room at the NFL draft, and got some good footage of players. Was alongside my partner Jason Alwine as he asked questions to the guys, and he asked some questions that went viral. I think some of the best questions were asked by my player profiler zone Jason Alwine. Shout out to Jason. But it was an incredible experience. Kansas City just crushed the draft, and I can't say enough good things about it. It was tremendous. But in the time that the NFL draft was going on, something was happening with these St. Louis Cardinals, right? Like the Cardinals, something was going on, and well, I tell you this: the Cardinals have been terrible. The Cardinals have lost 7 games in a row. They're in last place in the NL Central, and I think I'm out of things to say, Mike. And we haven't even had a show in 2 weeks, and I'm sitting here going, well, all the positives that we could have talked about with the Cardinals, right? Well, the starting pitching's good, but the offense is good. Well, now the offense is out of the top 10 in baseball statistically because they're not playing well, and Nolan Arenado's not playing well, but he's probably the least of my concerns. The starting pitching has been continued to be terrible. Like you are down there in starting pitching ERA. You are down there with the likes of like the Royals. Terrible. So, and I'm bringing it up right now. So you are down like the Cardinals in team ERA, right?
Hey, tell the
Yeah.
listeners where are you going for this? Where are you looking for this information? How are you finding all these
Oh,
statistics?
this is Fangraph. So the Cardinals ranked 24th in starting pitching ERA, which is actually a little bit better than I think the last time we talked about. But Jack Flaherty's coming off a start where he was terrible and dropped some F bombs in the press conference, and just was frustrated. And it's like, guys, yeah, everybody's frustrated. And then Ollie Marmol probably had one of his worst press conferences that he's ever had, where he went on this weird thing where he said, "Hey, nobody cares more than we do, guys. Nobody. You think the fans care more than we do? You think they care? You think they care more than we do? We show up here every day and we our blood, sweat, and tears on the line, guys. We're out here doing the best we can." And it's like, well, if that's the truth, then how come you guys aren't winning more games then? Like, that's kind of what it's all about, because you can't really go down this road, even if it can be interpreted. Now, he wasn't directly calling out the fans in that press conference, but if it can be interpreted that you might be calling out the fans, I don't really think that's a good road to go down, especially when the Cardinals fans are excellent. They show up every year. They show up every year, 40,000 plus on a Tuesday to watch your team, right? Year after year after year, they're top 2 in baseball in attendance in the National League. So it's probably fun for Cubs fans to watch all of this unfold, I would guess. I don't know, but I'm at a point right now, Mike, where I go into the game, and it's a feeling that I'm not very familiar with. It's like maybe when the Mike Matheny days were going on, and I have theories about why this is happening, which I'll go into later in the show. I know why. I know what the problem is, and we'll talk about it later. Like, I know what the problem is. I know the solution. The problem is that they needed to fix it like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and it's just like something they've let fester.
Interesting.
It's an obvious problem. It's an obvious problem. But I'm going to say that because I'm just at a point with this team where it's like, okay, what's going to happen next? The defense is bad. Their situational baseball is bad. Their offense at times can be bad. Their pitching's horrible. Their bullpen, which was good, is now bad. So there's not a place where you can turn to and say, yes, I'm confident in that part of the team. It was the offense, and now the offense is inconsistent. I guess Paul Goldschmidt, I don't know. Like, Paul Goldschmidt, it has been good. But Nolan Gorman was good, had been doing good, but really, I don't know, man. It's in his last 7 games. I mean, Nolan Gorman's hitting 167. So and like Nolan Arenado in the last 7 days hitting 217. Dylan Carlson's hitting 190.
Yeah.
Alec Burleson's hitting 167. Brendan Donovan's hitting 154. So I don't know. Like, when you have that many people in your lineup not doing well, I don't know what to say.
It doesn't seem like, Seth, that long ago, like probably about a month ago, that we were talking about, all the Cardinals batters are hitting over 300. And, well, I guess that was the start of the season, wasn't it? And so, within a week or 2 weeks of the season, but they, had one of the top offensive in the National League. Hey, Marmol's tirade. What date was that presser, by the way? Do you have any idea? Because I'm wondering if it coincided with Leah Day. Because Leah, of course, is a famous. It was 40 years ago this year that Leah had a infamous presser in which he called Chicago Cubs fans basically, jerks, and but a lot worse than that, right? Like, unemployed jerks that needed to get a job, and there was only one place. I mean, he went on this big rant, and good coaching friend of mine always says, losing makes you question the way that you wipe your ass. Do you go from bottom to top? Do you go from top to bottom? Do you do it side to side? Do you dab at what do you do? You just don't know. And so when you get these managers in these pressers, when they're in the situation that the Cardinals are in right now, what do you say? I mean, what do you say as a manager? And oftentimes all of those frustrations are going to come out. I don't think I didn't watch Marmol's presser. I don't think it came out like Leah's presser, because it was a vulgar 3-minute tirade. I mean, they've printed somebody, I think, this was back in the day when you didn't know you were being recorded because somebody had a little handheld recorder kind of deal. And there just happened to be one reporter there who was recording that one. But I'm sure Marmol's doing this in front of the step and repeat banner, the Cardinal step and repeat banner, and or in the locker room. I mean, I don't know, on video, on tape, everything else. But was it bad, or was it just like,
It was from what I recall when I saw it was a couple of days ago. It was, I think it was before the Angels, or maybe after the first game of the Angels series, something like that. Basically, I can't remember the exact question, but I think it was Ben Frederickson asked about the losing and about I don't recall the specific question, but essentially what happened was he said, "Do you think that the fans care more than we do?" No, they don't. Essentially, it's kind of what he implied. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think that's a good road to go down. I don't think you ever want to open yourself up to the possibility that you're calling out the fans. I don't even think you want to go down that road.
Yeah.
But
you must.
Yeah.
You must look up the transcript to Leah's rant.
Leah. I don't even know who Leah is. How
many
years ago was that?
Well, 40 years ago. I mean, right. Shortly after the transition from the Phillies, front office and the Cubs, and anyway, you'll have to take a look at it, because it sounds very similar in that Leah basically, he really went off on hey, I got guys in my clubhouse that are busting their asses. They're the ones going out there and, blood, sweat, and tears. I don't know what Marmol said, but similar language to what you were hearing, or what you were saying. Let's see here. They really behind you. I can't say some of this. Let me see. Bleep, 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 bleep. I suppose I do. Go out there and get my bleeping players get destroyed every day and be quiet about it. For the bleeping nickel dime people who turn up, the bleeping people don't even work. That's why they're out at the bleeping game. They ought to go out and get a bleeping job and find out what it's like to go out and earn a bleeping living. 85% of the bleeping world is working. The other 15% come out here, a bleeping playground for the bleepers. I mean, this was Leah's rant. Let's see here. All right. They don't show because we're 5-14. And unfortunately, that's the criteria. Them dumb 15 bleeping percent that come out to day baseball. The other 85% are earning a living. I mean, it's kind of a classic. You'll have to look up the whole thing, but a big part of it was the progress that we've made. We've got 143 games left. If you want to rip somebody, what I'm trying to say is, don't rip those bleeping guys out there, he said. Now, this is the part that's similar to Marmol. If you want to rip somebody, rip my bleeping bleep. But don't rip them bleeping guys, because they're giving everything they can give. And right now they're trying to do more than God gave them. And that's why we make the simple mistakes. There you go. I mean, it just goes on and on like that for minutes, but losing, right? I mean, 5-13, well, gee whiz, early in the season to be losing your mind.
Well, it's just been a weird year. So I have the quote pulled up. So the quote that went, I guess, viral. I don't know if you want to say viral or not, but the quote is, The clubhouse is extremely frustrated. We want to deliver for this city. That's what you wake up for every day. So if you think other people are more frustrated than those people within the wall, you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so anyway,
I didn't hear a
I
whole lot
don't
of bleeps in there, but
no, it was, like it went on longer than that. I mean, that's just
sure.
one quote, but it's just been a weird year, man. Like it started off with the Tyler O'Neill thing, like calling
Right.
him out, and which is weird. I don't know, like, and I told you I didn't agree with that. Then they send down
Do you
Jordan
think,
Walker, which we
do you,
haven't talked about yet. They sent down Jordan Walker, and I was listening to a show with AJ Przinsky and Todd Frazier, who are two pretty prominent former big leaguers, and they were talking about how who Todd Frazier said, "Well, that's way too early to send a kid down." Like Todd Frazier said, "I went 0 for 31 one time in my second year, and they didn't send me down." And I think Walker had hit like 207 in his last week or something before they sent him down, citing like his swing needed a change and his hard hit rate was down, which I understand. But but I mean, he was probably the least of their problems offensively. I mean, he had just gone on like a 12-game hitting streak, for crying out loud. So they were talking about that, and then Przinsky brought up the fact that whoever put this roster together really didn't do a good job if you're sending this kid down already. Like if your plan was to have him start in right field and now all of a sudden you're sending him down, like either you're panicking or the plan wasn't very good in the first place. Either way, it's not a good look for Mozeliak, which we can talk about. We can go in any direction you want to go, but I should probably give you some time to
well,
talk about the
yeah.
Cubs. I should probably give you some time to talk about the Cubs because we're almost 20 minutes into the show and we haven't mentioned the Cubs yet. So
Well, meanwhile, yeah.
how's
Meanwhile, the Cubs are in third place in the National League Central. They're 3.5 games back. However, they've lost 3 of their last 7, and several of those were and that was on a road trip east. And maybe it's a time zone thing. Who knows? I mean, what do you excuse these things on, right? But they get the Marlins handle them down in Miami, playing indoors in Miami, and then the Washington Nationals. We lose 2 series in a row on the East Coast swing. And so 3 out of 7. Now, thankfully, yesterday at Wrigley Field, Mash Mervis was called up from AAA Iowa. We have a new first baseman. Eric Hosmer was out of the lineup. Hosmer has not been hitting the ball well. Sometimes the defense has been questionable, all that kind of stuff. And really, the people were starting to clamor, when's Mervis coming up, who's hitting like 284 in AAA and, with 10 homers and, this and that. And so Mash goes 0 for 3 in his first 3 at bats and then gets his first major league hit, driving in a run, an insurance run, I might add, in the later innings, which, when he came up to bat, to see the Wrigley faithful stand up and give a standing ovation for a rookie, it's kind of fun, myself included. And then, so we, but still lost 3 of the last 7. And when I think I sent you the text message, in fact, the Cubs are the only team in the National League Central who won a game yesterday. I mean, when you look at the standings, it goes Pittsburgh lost 5 in a row. Milwaukee lost 5 in a row. Chicago won 1. Cincinnati lost 2. St. Louis lost 7. Like, maybe it speaks to the division too, right? I mean, because we're playing all these cross-divisional games and, things of that nature. And we're not faring real well against some of these other teams. And I haven't looked specifically at St. Louis's schedule or anything like that. Nico Horner's still hitting the ball in the leadoff spot. He's exactly where he needs to be. He's often one of my beat the streak picks, like it or not, whether he ends my streak or not. But, we're in Chicago right now, which is why you see a hotel room behind me. And I got to watch my beat the streak selection. It's nothing more fun than that. First at bat, rip one into left center. I think it was. I have to think back, but so, and you mentioned where the pitching staff is and where the Cardinals pitching staff is, and when I look at Fangraphs, it looks like Chicago has the number 7 best pitching staff in all of baseball, if I'm reading this correctly. And I'm not sure what that's based on in the overall picture, if that's just based on ERA, because there's a lot of numbers here.
They are, I have it pulled up too.
Or if it's wins and losses.
Their starting pitching ERA is actually 4th in all of baseball. And if you go by wins above replacement, which I'm sorting by now, they're 7th in all of baseball. So that's what you're citing there. So yeah, the Cubs, like we talked about, and you tried to warn me, the Cubs pitching has been a lot better than people thought it was going to be. And that bodes well for them in the future, because if you can find, like it seems like they found a few arms there, then you have the ability to plug some holes in free agency, which is something that, frustratingly enough, the Cardinals don't really do well,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, the Cubs are the pitching. I mean, I'm envious of the pitching, obviously.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, we were talking to our Uber driver about this yesterday, Chicago guy who's a baseball fan. He saw my shirt, which the shirt, by the way, given to me by my mother-in-law for my birthday, was a tremendous hit yesterday. That it's the first live baseball game that I've been to since I'm not even going to call it an invention, the monstrosity that is the pitch clock. Maybe monstrosity is a better word, but the shirt, I happen to wear it today as well. It says "Make baseball slower." Yeah. And you would not believe the number of people. I made so many friends yesterday. It's unbelievable. We made friends with a Chicago area media personality. We'll just leave it at that. And Catherine came up to us at the Nisei Lounge and just said, "Hey, can I buy you a Chicago handshake because you're wearing that shirt?" And numerous people. And I don't have any idea what my point was now, Seth, because I've gone down the rails. But
you don't. So you've had the opportunity to see a game, right?
Yeah.
Now with the pitch clock.
Yeah.
So you don't hear. So everybody in Wrigley is like that you've talked to is speaking negatively about this pitch clock.
No, not everyone. I mean, I think when you were, in fact, I had a lot of good discussions about. Well, I kind of like the pace of play. I like, and frankly, I don't tell our listeners or anybody else about this, but frankly, it makes the game a little more lively. But when you're at the ballpark, that's not what I'm out there for necessarily. Like I kind of like the idea that, there's not a lot of action. Listen, I went down to grab a pretzel and a beer at the concession stand and I missed a half an inning.
Yeah.
I came up and the other team was at bat. I was like, what in the world? Like, what happened? Yeah. 3 strikeouts, and that might've happened even before the pitch clock, but I can't remember who the runner was. There are some things that are just a little different. Like I think I tweeted you, and I'm not going off the rails here as far as topic lines go, but because you mentioned the pitch clock, and so you're going to get a rant. A guy standing on first base taking off his body armor and trying to get his sliding glove on, and the bat boy is grabbing all his stuff from him and dropping stuff as he's running back to the visitor dugout, and the pitch is being thrown. Because and the guy's got his Velcro strap from his batting glove or his sliding apparatus. I don't even know what they call that thing. But
oven mitt. I call it
an oven mitt. Yep. And because
they're so hot. It's so hot. Those bases are so hot that they have.
Yeah.
They don't want to they don't want to burn their fingers sliding into.
Yeah, you would think that when they expanded the bases, they would have cooled off a little bit, but
I know. Yeah, And why don't they have two of them? Because you have just as much of a chance sliding in with the other hand. You should have two oven mitts, right?
Right,
You should have two
right.
oven mitts. I don't understand why you only have one.
Now, listen, if you get the first oven mitt, you've heard it called that before,
No.
or is that your term?
It looks like an oven mitt. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, I mean, if all I'm saying is you could make the baseball dictionary, but the guy's Velcro strap that looked like an ace bandage coming off his arm wasn't even. He was having to wrap it while he was getting ready to run. It was, I don't know. Anyway, back to the Cubbies. Nico Horner, and Dansby Swanson are a thing of beauty to see in person. I mean, those two guys working together. Horner had a leaping grab, and then a little underhand shuffle to Swanson, who was running to second for a double play that was glorious. And I can't tell you how many times I saw Swanson going to his right and ranging to his right and sliding down the one knee and just making an incredible stop on shots to the shortstop. Fun stuff to watch. Seiya Suzuki is back in right field. Cody Bellinger, is kind of returning to his old form. We hope that he continues to show promise in that regard. Our all-star, Ian Happ is playing well. Had a nice shot to center field yesterday for a home run. And yet 3-7, right? I mean, Patrick Wisdom, I think, I'd have to check Fangraphs, and I'm kind of discombobulated because I don't have my other laptop here. But last I knew, he was leading the majors in home runs. Wisdom was, and now we've got Matt Mervis up and Miguel Amaya, who's because Jan Gomes got hit in the head with a bat on a follow-through swing, and probably is concussion protocol for I don't know how long, but so we're pulling guys up while when I saw the Jordan Walker announcement, I scratched my butt a lot. Like what? Yeah. Right? Like, what are they doing? Like, how are they? And then I looked at his numbers. And I was like, okay, but here's my thing, Seth. One of the things that you mentioned was hard hit rate. I saw a graphic of Hosmer, right? And they had the little slidey number thingies. I know that's a highly technical term, on hard hit rate and, K percentage and all these analytics and sabermetrics and all that kind of thing. Back in the day, when a guy went through a slump, I mean, is this how we're going to treat players now? Like, to me, it's a little bit mind-boggling, because let's just remember that these guys like Jordan Walker, like Eric Hosmer, they are the best baseball players in the world. Like, are we not going to let guys go through slumps now? Are we just going to say, oh, your numbers, your exit velocity, da-da-da-da-da, we've got to send you back to the lab? To me, it's a little bit mind-boggling, because there's a piece of that that's like, okay, hold on, hold the boat a minute. Like, if everybody's numbers go down, you just send them all down? And then what? Because what are you going to do? Who are you going to bring up? The replacements? I mean, I don't know. That's my take on it. It's a little weird to me.
The whole season's been weird. I don't know what Mozeliak's thinking with some of this stuff, or what Ollie Marmol's thinking, because okay,
Moneyball, right? Moneyball.
The kid's 20 years old. 20. You didn't think that this would happen? You didn't think that maybe at some point in the season, I don't know, he wouldn't be performing well as a rookie, as his first time in the MLB? You didn't foresee this happening, and then the first sign of trouble, you send him down, and then guess who you bring up to save the day? Here he comes to save the day, Taylor Motter. That's who you bring up. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because you can't. And they cited some weird stuff with the outfield too. They cited like, well, we just want to have a set lineup. We don't want to have somebody asking for playing time. Well, isn't that what you want? Is competition? So, if a part of the reason was that you sent Jordan Walker down was because, well, now we don't have to worry about who's playing tomorrow. That's stupid. That's a stupid reason to send him down. So it just feels like again, they didn't have a plan, like, or they had a plan, which this makes maybe more sense. They had a plan, and then they panicked and sent him down at the first sign of trouble. The kid had a 12-game hitting streak. 12 games.
Right.
At some point, I don't care about the hard hit rate. If you're hitting, like I don't think the Cardinals get to be picky. I don't think they get to be picky at this point, right?
Right.
And so, I alluded to, John Denton was on St. Louis Cardinals radio, and he said, "Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. Major shakeup is coming. Big changes are happening. The Cardinals are not happy with what's going on." Well, I sure hope they aren't. I sure hope they're not happy, because you want to know what the major shakeup was, Mike Jones? Do you want to know what the major shakeup that Mozeliak's like, oh, this will teach them. This will show those baseball players that they need to get their act together. You know, want to know what it was?
What was it?
Want to know what it was?
What
Guess
was it?
Who's coming to the Cardinals, baby? Jake Woodford is on the 15-day IL. So he's poor Jake Woodford. It's not his fault. Tyler O'Neill. He has right shoulder inflammation. Maybe he does. Who knows? Tyler O'Neill, 10-day IL. His lower back's really hurting him. So,
okay.
Good golly.
Is this just another way to find ways to send them down? I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, maybe you're touching on what I'm trying to allude to. Guess who's coming to the Cardinals, Mike?
I'm almost nervous to find out.
Do you know who James? I don't even know if I don't want to do this man really a disservice by mispronouncing his name. Mm-hmm. But he's a 30-year-old, and nothing against this guy, right?
Right.
He's a 30-year-old minor leaguer named James Nailey, left-handed pitcher coming up to, I assume, be in the bullpen. But I don't know. I'm not sure what the plan is, because Wainwright, I think, starts today. Is his first start back, I'm pretty sure. So I'm assuming Wainwright's going to take the rotation spot. Nailey's going to go to the bullpen. And now you have another outfielder that's gone, right? Like, Yepez is coming up. That's good. I'm kind of happy about that, to see what Juan Yepez can do.
Right.
But that's not a major shakeup. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I've no disrespect intended. Who's the guy again? James Nailey, Naile.
Oh, okay.
And if you're wondering, I have his stats pulled up here. So in the minor leagues,
I am wondering.
In the minor leagues in 2023, he is 3-1 with a 2.50 ERA. He's started 2 games. He's pitched 18 innings. He struck out 19 people in 18 innings. So if he can do that at the major league level, that's great. But the problem is he's only appeared in 7 games in the MLB, and his ERA is 5, and the 5.0 ERA in those 7 games. And he, like I said, he's 30 years old. So I don't necessarily know if that's the answer. I don't think it's the answer. I hope that's not like the shakeup that was alluded to by certain members of the media that they said was inevitable, coming like Thanos, right? Snap. That's not necessarily snapping the finger. I'm really wondering how they're like. I haven't, and I'm trying not to overreact, right? But I'm really wondering, like, this is terrible. Like, this is about as bad as I've ever seen a baseball team play, and I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Seth, what were you wondering? I mean, what were you expecting Clayton Kershaw or were you know what I mean? I mean,
yeah, that's
don't
fair.
you think don't you think the Cardinals, they're you got to go with what you got kind of thing? Or listen, when you say that it's the worst baseball you've ever seen, I mean, are you serious? I mean,
What do you mean?
it's that bad.
Yeah.
So isn't the shakeup? I mean, isn't the shakeup that the reporter's referring to? Marmol's gone, right? I mean, they're not going to hang on to him, are they? What? How did he get the? I'm just wondering, like, how did he even? Remember when he rolled into that position? Like the Cardinals had won like 18 in a row going into the postseason. They were on a hot streak. Who was the previous manager?
Mike Schilt.
And now he's in Kansas City, or was. I don't know. Maybe he's out. Matheny was. That's right.
I think Mike Schilt's working in the commissioner's office, but I could be wrong.
But they were red hot at that time. They were going the gangbusters. They made the postseason. They it's kind of like the hitting streak that you just talked about for your guy Walker. I mean, and they're red hot, and then I don't know. They lost the game in the wild card, and then the next thing you knew, they were replacing him with Marmol, and
citing philosophical differences. And guess what?
What's the philosophical difference? Winning?
It's hard to say, man. Well, another weird thing that happened before the season that not too many people are talking about. Mike Maddox left, the pitching coach that had been there for years. And then they signed Matt. You remember they signed Matt Holliday to be the bench coach, and then he resigned, and then now they have Joe McEwing as their bench coach. But he cited family. He obviously want to spend more time with his family, which he can never never shame a man for that.
Right.
But, it's just all this weirdness with the staff too.
Yeah.
Like under Ollie Marmol, and they lost Skip Schumacher. Obviously, they've lost Albert and Yachty, which some people I think are mistakenly saying is a cause of this whole thing. I don't think so. I think really it's, and I suppose I can get into it now. If you want to know why this is happening, why is this happening? It's because in baseball you cannot take things for granted, because baseball is a different sport than any other sport. It's not the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest. Those people don't win. You know who wins? The people that are the most mentally tough. Those are the people that win. Because baseball's 90% mental and the other half's physical, right? Yogi Berra.
Mm-hmm.
So, and right now it just kind of feels like, judging by some of Ollie Marmol's responses, judging by Jack Flaherty's response yesterday, I think it was yesterday. No, it was the day before, because Montgomery pitched yesterday. This is not a team, I mean, I don't want to say everybody, but where certain members of their pitching staff don't appear to be mentally tough. And you think of when the Cardinals were good, right? Went back in the early 2000s. They had Chris Carpenter. They had Adam Wainwright in his prime. They had aces. And if you want to pinpoint a problem with this team, that's it. The last 3 years, it's like a problem that you just ignore. Like when you have a problem with your car and you know that engine needs replaced, but you keep on riding it and you keep on riding it and you keep on riding it. And then one day, guess what happens? You break down on the side of the road. And that's what the Cardinals are right now. They've broken down on the side of the road because for 3 years now, they have avoided the obvious problem that they didn't want to address. And guess why they didn't want to address it? Because either you're going to have to give up a bunch of prospects and take a huge risk, or you're going to have to pay a lot of money for an ace that you didn't develop within your organization. Well, you did, but then you made the Marcell Ozuna trade, which you can cross it off your bingo sheet that I'm going to mention the Marcell Ozuna trade on this podcast. There you go. Right? And somebody can angrily comment, why are you bringing that trade up? That happened way long ago. It shouldn't matter now. But those turned out to be the guys that you traded away, and it was a mistake.
Right,
So
right.
that is the problem with the Cardinals. And you tried to. Oh, my monitor just cut out. Can you still see me? Oh, that was
Right.
weird.
Yeah, there you go.
My computer just fell asleep, I think.
Your rant was so long, and when it heard the Marcell Ozuna trade, it was like, oh God, this again.
But it's true though. I think it's true because you cannot. I mean, the Cardinals have. I mean, they're not pitching well, and sometimes your third, fourth, fifth pitchers in the rotation don't pitch well. You know what
Right.
ends losing streaks? You know what gets you back on track is somebody who can come in and strike out 10 guys and shove. Like
Right.
that ends losing streaks no matter what.
Yeah.
And you just don't have that guy. When the Cardinals had two of them in Wainwright and Carpenter. And
Yeah.
for a lot of years they both weren't healthy at the same time. But that's the difference. That's why
Yeah.
this team's not a World Series contender and why I never thought it was a World Series contender because we talked about this before the season. I said they need an ace. They've got
Yeah.
a lot of good pieces, but they need an ace. And guess what? They're going to now they're desperate. They're more desperate than they ever have been. So guess what? Now that engine replacement is going to cost them way more than if they just would have replaced the engine in the first place.
You know, as you're speaking of that, and I hope, okay, and I'm going to say this tongue in cheek because as a Cubs fan, I hope that we get a whole new meaning to the term the Cardinal way. On the other hand, I don't think that's good for baseball. I hope this is not, something that the Cardinals go down this road because we've talked about this before. When the Cubs and the Cardinals are competitive, it's good for baseball, right? It's good for baseball. Now,
100%.
Speaking of guys who shove, I said earlier in the year, I think we found our ace in Marcus Stroman. I was mistaken. We found our ace in Justin Steele and Marcus Stroman. Justin Steele yesterday went out and threw 7 innings, 86 pitches. I turned to my wife and I said, it's 7th inning. I said, I hope we don't go with conventional wisdom here and pull Justin Steele, who is shoving, out of the game. It would be silly to do that at this juncture. I thought he had given up 6 hits, 1 run, 1 earned, 4 strikeouts. And at 86 pitches, in came Michael Fulmer. Okay, but what we talk about before, quality starts, right? So Justin Steele is 5-0. 5-0 with I don't know what his overall ERA is right now. I'd have to his overall ERA, I believe, is 1.45. And so
I'll pull it up while you're talking.
Yeah. And Michael Fulmer comes in and everybody kind of goes, because he's got an ERA of 6.08. He gives up a hit in an inning. And then
1.45 ERA. You're right.
Yeah, and then Leiter Jr. comes in. So here's the whole point of that part of the conversation is that what you mentioned, like when you think of Major League Baseball aces, you don't necessarily think Justin Steele or Drew Smyly. You like those names you don't necessarily think of. But I think somehow the Cubs have found a niche in developing pitchers. I mean, and you know who it started with? Who it without question started with? Jake Arrieta. In my opinion, that's whatever they started doing at that point, at that juncture. I think they've got some kind of something going on. They've found a way to take these guys and make them aces internally. Like they're finding guys that aren't costing them an arm and a leg. You know, it's not Jacob deGrom. It's not Clayton Kershaw. It's not, Bumgarner in his prime. It's not these guys. It's Justin Steele and Drew Smyly, and the biggest atrocity in the month of April was that Justin Steele was not named one of the top pitchers of the month with the lowest ERA, I believe, in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, no,
But
so he ranks, I believe it was third behind Garrett Cole and Sonny Gray.
okay,
But still, like Cubs have, I think they're the only team in baseball that have two pitchers in the top 10 with the lowest ERA. And you talked about it, Stroman and Steele. And to go back to just bring it full circle to my, guess what? Marcus Stroman was somebody the Cardinals were interested in, but guess what? He was too expensive. So they went the cheap route and signed Steven Matz.
who?
Steven Matz.
Has he been sent? Has he been sent down yet? Has he been sent down yet?
He probably should be.
Oh goodness!
But let me just read you. So those are some I read you some Cubs the two top starters for the Cubs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Justin Steele and Marcus Stroman. Justin Steele has pitched in 7 games. He's thrown 43 innings in 7 games, which off the top of my head, I can't do math, but that's either 6 or 7 innings per start, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which that would qualify you for a quality start. I bet if he's not leading the majors in quality starts, he's up there. Same thing with Marcus Stroman. I mean, that has to be it. I mean, Justin Steele has actually thrown more innings pitched than Marcus Stroman. He's not giving up home runs, less than a half of a home run per outing. He doesn't strike out many people, but I don't really care about that. You just got to get people out, right?
Right.
You just got to get people out. Who cares about
ground ball rates, baby?
That was what
tough middle infield.
That's what the Cardinals, prided themselves on for years. Is just get the ball in play. That's kind of Miles Michaelis-esque. He's that kind of pitcher. 1.45 ERA. FIP is actually a little high. So that would say even that ERA could even be lower. 3.19 FIP, which is like the average on fielded, or like minus fielding. Like that's what's your ERA without the fielders factored in. So and then you look at the Cardinals pitching, right? You look at St. Louis, and I have all these tabs open, man.
Who would you say, Seth, is the Cardinals? Who would you say is the Cardinals' ace?
Well, it's probably Jordan Montgomery. I mean, right now he's their best pitcher. He's thrown 41 innings. He's started 7 games, 5 quality starts. I mean, 2 and 4, but his ERA is 3.229.
Are you finding quality starts on Fangraphs?
It's on ESPN, so I had to look around for that. But there's a link in the show sheet. But anyway, he's struck out 38. I mean, he's been solid. He's been the only solid pitcher that you can really rely upon to not get. I mean, there's been a few starts where he hasn't been as good, but for the most part, Jordan Montgomery's been really, really good. Miles, and you look at the rest of the starting rotation, Mike, it is comical. It's comical. Like, let me just read you some of these numbers. Miles Michaelis, 5.79 ERA. Jack Flaherty, 6.29 ERA. Steven Matz, 6.39. Jake Woodford, statistically, you can laugh at me if you want to. Jake Woodford actually has been our second best pitcher statistically, if you're just going by ERA, which is freaking wild. And you just sent him down. He's on the IL, I guess. Like, I guess he's on the IL technically. But like Jake Woodford, Jake Woodford's not the problem. Like, Jake Woodford, we know who Jake Woodford is. He's a fine 5th guy in the rotation. Maybe throw him in the bullpen. He's fine. There's nothing wrong with Jake Woodford. The problem is, like, the Cardinals do this. They find these scapegoats, like the Jake Woodfords and the Tyler O'Neills of the world. It drives me insane. Like, the real problem is you screwed up, John Mozeliak, and you didn't change the engine when you should have changed the engine. Like, really, without the saving grace of the Paul Goldschmidt trade and the Nolan Arenado trade, which, don't get me wrong, fantastic moves. I mean, can you point to another thing this guy's done that's been good? I mean, Wilson Contreras, I guess, but another free agent signing. But his pitching signings have been terrible. Bullpen and terrible. Like,
Hey,
Steven Matz is terrible.
Can we talk about Wilson Contreras for a minute?
Sure.
And how let's talk specifically about how does Wilson Contreras play into your pitching staff woes?
Yeah, the numbers, I don't have the numbers pulled up right now, but I think our ERA is amongst starting pitchers is in the 4s when he's catching, and when Austin or Kinzer, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Kinzer.
I can't say it, but when he's catching, the ERA is significantly lower. Yes.
Right.
Now, that's a small sample size. That's not
right.
a 3-year. That's not a 3-year sample size, and he is trying to replace one of the best defensive catchers of all time, in Yadier Molina, and he's not. When he came in, we kind of knew that was going to drop off, but I don't know if you can, because Steven Matz, when you watch Steven Matz pitch, he's not locating anything. Like he even admitted, I don't have my curveball, man. And then John Denton pointed out on the radio, said, well, if you don't have your curveball, you should not be pitching on Sunday. So we'll see if right now Steven Matz is supposed to be the starting pitcher on Sunday, I believe. We'll see. We'll see if he's probably going to start again on Sunday because they've got a lot invested into him. But he probably should be in the bullpen at this point. My point is, I don't like 33 games in with Wilson Contreras as the catcher. A, he's trying to replace Yadi. B, that's a short sample size, and the pitchers have been terrible. Like, it's not like
not all on him.
I don't know if you can really blame. Now, does it factor in? Maybe, but
that's all I'm saying. Contributing factor.
But it's not like he's not
the
problem. If you ask me, I actually like Wilson's fiery demeanor. It's the same demeanor that Arenado has. I just wish somebody would. I don't know. I think we're just lacking leaders on our pitching staff. That's the way it appears.
Yeah.
But I think we have plenty of leaders on the hitting positional side of things. And I'm not in the clubhouse, so I don't know for sure. But they've got to do something. I don't know.
Listen, like you mentioned, they made a big move. This James Nail fits right into their pitching staff woes.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it. He's 0 for 0. He's 0 for 0 in his major league career, and he's got a 5.00 ERA, which is probably the best amongst the Cardinals staff. Right? Yeah, I don't know about your guy, who'd you say was the best pitcher again? I've forgotten his name already.
Jordan Montgomery. Who, by the way, is a free agent next year. The only two pitchers still, you remember we talked about this? The only two pitchers they have under contract, three if you count Dakota Hudson, Miles Michaelis, who they just extended, and Steven Matz, baby. That's the only two. Only two.
Wow.
So both of those guys stink right now.
Yeah.
Both of them.
So they may have to give up some prospects, eh? In order to get some pitching.
And this is wild. It's wild how things can change like in a snap of a finger. We were talking about how great the Cardinals prospects were, how great their outfield was going to be. And right now, if you want to trade Tyler O'Neill, which is another reason why it was stupid for Ollie to call him out, what are you getting for him? I don't know if you're getting that much. Before the season started, you might have been able to get a quality starting pitcher for him. I don't know. What's Dylan Carlson worth right now? I don't think. Maybe if some team maybe if some team wants to take a shot on him, I don't know. But I think everybody's value, including Jordan Walker, well, maybe not Jordan Walker. I don't think Jordan Walker's value has gone down. But like Alec Burleson, I don't know if anybody's value has gone up, is what I'm saying. That could have been a trade chip, right? Maybe you could argue Nolan Gorman, but I don't think they're going to trade Nolan Gorman, So I think people they could trade if they still want to go down. Like, people are talking about the Cardinals being sellers now. And to that, I say it's too early to talk about that, in my opinion. Like, they're 10-23. They are the worst team in the National League, but we're only 33 games in. But if you want to trade for a starting pitcher, and this is what this is the theme I've been talking about. If you see a problem, go fix it and don't wait for your engine to break down like it's breaking down right now. Now it's going to cost you more. And now it's going to cost you more, and your guys aren't worth as much on the trade market. That's just the way it is. And do I still like a lot of the Cardinals players? I think they're super talented. But it's just unfortunate that this team, I'm gonna keep saying it until the cows come home. They just don't, because you can't take this stuff for granted. You can't take for granted that you're first in the Central. You can't take for granted that the Central is just gonna be bad. Like, it just feels like the Cardinals, year in and year out, take this for granted. They take for granted, like, yep, we're the best team. We're cool with winning the Central. We're not really going to make a big move. We're just going to wait till the deadline and get a John Lester who's past his prime, and we're going to get a J.A. Happ, and we're going to, we're not really going to fill a long-term need here. Like, it's just so frustrating when you have a team like that. In my personal opinion, you have to make moves in order to make that team as good as it can be, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the future. You can do your best to project, but when you're in the here and now, and you're a win-now team, and you have Paul Goldschmidt, and you have Nolan Arenado, and you need a pitcher, you should go get a pitcher.
Speaking of projections, looking at Fangraphs right now, looking at the standings for the National League Central. The Pirates, of course, are in first place. None of us knew. Where did this come from?
I nailed the standings, Mike. If I just had Pittsburgh and St. Louis flip-flopped.
Right. They are a 25.4% chance of making the playoffs, according to Fangraphs. The Brewers are a 61% chance of making the playoffs. Interesting. The Cubs, a 23.7% chance of making the playoffs, and the Cardinals, a 21.3% chance.
Still 21%?
Can you believe it?
That's kind of crazy.
My point being, the Cubs ahead of the Cardinals at this point in the season, right? Like, in all seriousness, at the start of the season, who'd have thunk it? Other than me, right? Or other than Cubs fans.
You didn't think that the Cardinals would be this terrible.
Well, no, but I'm just saying, I repeatedly said that you need to be aware that the Cubs are going to be competitive this year. Don't write the Cubs off. They are going to be competitive. In fact, I think I said something about them finishing second, of course, first in the division, but at a reality point, second in the division, because, well, we weren't sure what we had. Now we're starting to find out, hey, maybe we have something. I mean, if we can get guys like, Cody Bellinger, first of all, is what, 1.5 WAR. Nico Horner, 1.3 WAR. Dansby Swanson, 1.2 WAR. And, not that WAR is everything. Patrick Wisdom, 1.1. These guys are playing well. We're talking about guys that are batting 297, 309, 283, 229. Ian Happ's batting 300. Jan Gomes is batting 310. Looking forward to his return. Hopefully this injury isn't a big thing. Don't forget about Nelson Velasquez. Seiya Suzuki is probably, he's batting 273, but his WAR is not great. He had some injuries here at the start of the year too, that I think part of that is impactful in terms of how he started out. But I think that there's just a lot, and now Mash Mervis. He's probably not even in any of these statistics yet. I'm just glad that the Cubs didn't do with Mervis yesterday the Cardinals seem to be is their new practice. Because when Mervis went 0 for 3 at bat, they might have sent him back down, but they didn't. And he got his first major league hit. And so now maybe he'll start today too.
See, maybe I'm in the minority with this,
Mm-hmm.
but I really can't blame. I think most of the blame needs to be put on Mozeliak for this. But I agree. Like you look at the Cubs, like top 30 in WAR, right?
Right.
They have 1, 2, 3, 4 players in the top 30 in wins above replacement. That's fantastic. I mean, Atlanta's killing it. They have the top 2, Sean Murphy and Ronald Acuna.
Yeah.
And so which is I mean, that's outstanding for Atlanta.
Who are both on my fantasy team, by the way. Just want to point that out.
Nice. But there's no doubt that the Cubs are going to be competitive, like you said, and I never thought they wouldn't be. I just thought they were probably a year away. But we do have a question in the chat for you, Mike.
Yeah.
Jeff, Nico Horner or Mark Grace, who was the better hitter?
Oh my goodness, you're putting me on the spot, Jeb. This is one of our beat the streak players, Jeff, and love having you on board on that as well, Jeb. And listen, obviously Mark Grace at this point. Mark Grace was a sure hit. It seemed like every time he came to bat. Nico Horner is a sure hit. He's just got a smaller sample size. Who do I think in the long run will end up being, more of a Cubs lore? I think that they will both be remembered similarly. And I know that's sitting the fence. But to be honest with you, I mean, because I was a huge Mark Grace fan before he became a broadcaster. Honestly, I think Nico Horner will probably surpass him in the Cubs lore for hitters. And granted, they're playing at different positions. You put Matt Mervis up against Mark Grace, and I'd probably, I'm going with Grace every time. But Nico Horner sure is a lot of fun to watch. He's a professional baseball hitter, man. He sprays it all over the place, and it's fun to watch for sure. And it's funny, Jeb, you mentioned in another comment the McGuire-Sosa home run race forever. And I was talking with my wife, who I'm here with in Chicagoland, and we're going to be at Wrigley again today. And she was like, I don't think I really started watching baseball until McGuire-Sosa, because I've got my Sosa jersey in my suitcase and I'm wearing that. And she's like, that's when I think I really started to get interested in it. And then I started watching, and it was like, God, what year was that? Like,
90.
I had to look back on that, and it was the year that we were first started dating. And so, that will forever, and bring Sosa back, Cubs, please. Just listen, what he did for baseball, regardless of all the other stuff that, always gets brought up. Bring these guys back. They're the best baseball players at their time, and they were doing what baseball players were doing, right? Yep. That was the norm, obviously. As we look back on that 30 years later, or whatever it is, 28 years, 26, I'm terrible at math, especially year math. But as we look back on that stuff, can't we look back on that and go, you know what? That's what people were, that was the kind of the culture. Like, that was the culture of it. I mean, because now we got a new culture with the sports books and the betting and all that. Are we gonna eliminate? Is that going to be the first scandal now? Is like we're going to see more guys betting, and then we're going to kick everybody out of baseball, or what? I don't know. Anyway, bring Sosa back.
Well, to talk about the McGuire-Sosa thing, I remember as a kid, right, like wanting to read the newspaper so I could get an update on the home run race. And
yeah.
It was in Southeast Iowa. It was kind of a magical time because in Southeast Iowa, likely you're either a Cubs fan or a Cardinals fan if you follow baseball. And so it was your friends talking to you, oh, Sosa's going to catch McGuire. And then I'd say, no, he's not. And we'd
Hmm.
just, talk back and forth, clap back at each other over that. And it was when I know we don't have these kinds of cameras anymore. We just have our phones. But when McGuire would come to the plate, there would be like flash bulbs popping all over the stadium, like people just taking pictures of him. There'd be people lining up to go watch him hit batting practice, these majestic moonshots. And yeah, he was taking steroids, and but like you said, everybody was like, that was kind of the accepted norm. Like, a lot of people were doing it, not everybody, but a lot of people were doing it. So it doesn't make it right, but it does. We can't ignore that, right? We can't
Right.
ignore that it was just something that guys were doing. And what they did, I mean, and what's interesting to me is I was listening to an interview with McGuire, and he claims that his biggest regret was, obviously doing steroids and breaking rules. But he claims that he thinks he could have beat the home run record without steroids. Like, he thought he was that good that he could do
Right.
it still.
Right.
So
Right.
which
And
which
Sosa and Sosa did without using steroids. So
what do you mean? Oh, you think that? Okay, all right. Well, I see what you're saying, but I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. But
what?
anyway,
What? Do you have where's your? Okay, go ahead. We
anyway,
won't get into this one again. Besides, I gotta
there's
I got a game to get to. We gotta wrap this thing up pretty soon.
at like 9 in the morning. Do you get there that early?
You gotta get to you get to the neighborhood. You go in. I got to get down to the Nisiate Lounge and have a
See all
day
your
baseball, have a day baseball beer and we're out in the burbs too, so we got a little bit of travel time to get there. And we want to make it in time for Fergie Jenkins bobblehead day.
All right,
Fergie Jenkins
all right.
statue bobblehead day.
But just to put a bow on that point, there's no doubt that the Sosa McGuire home run chase was one of the things that saved baseball back in the day.
Yeah.
No doubt,
Absolutely.
no question about it. And it's one of the best
Yep.
30 for 30s I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But we gotta get you out of here. We can't let a show go by without what we need to do now. Do you have
Listen,
your book?
you're going to be disappointed in me because my suitcase only had so much room, and so I looked. I was like, oh, should I? I don't know if I can fit that in the. I don't know.
Well, you're
But
lucky for you.
I don't have it.
Lucky for you.
It's the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary segment of the show where Seth pulls out his dictionary. How about that? It's funny when you hear it from the other side, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good stuff. The first time I did that, we're going to have to pull that clip and put it on YouTube and probably lose our jobs. But anyway, let's see. I'm in the S's for anybody following along. This is the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary. You can see it here on YouTube, but if you aren't on YouTube, well, you can't see it because we have no screen projection on.
Let me
on
describe
the
it for you.
podcast.
It's a red, white, and blue book that says the Dixon's Baseball Dictionary, 3rd edition, written by Paul Dixon. It's very American, and it's about the size of Crime and Punishment, if not larger.
Well, Mike, I hope you see a lot of these today, and I hope that the other team, the Marlins, hit a lot of these today. But
Yes.
The word of the day is a screaming rope, which is an extraordinarily hard hit line drive. There's also a word named screecher, or a hard hit line drive. Screecher, straight into Bradley's glove, was the first time it was used by the Washington Post on May 17th, 1909 by Pete Morris. Actually, no, its first use was in 1891 by Edward J. Nichols in the Chicago Herald on July 5th of 1891. There's also the screaming Mimi, which you may be familiar with, a vicious low line drive that seems to scream, probably due to a high rate of spin on the ball. A synonym, screaming Mimi, which is in the dictionary, they spell it M-E-E-M-I-E, and the synonym is M-I-M-I. The term is a bit of slang that has been applied to a variety of things. Peter Timoni noted that the screaming memes were the jitters, as in the 1942 film Balls of Fire, starring Gary Cooper and Barbara Stanwyck. During World War II, it was used as a slang for German artillery shells. And that is the screaming meme. So hard hit. Yeah, a vicious low line drive that seems to scream, probably due to a high rate of spin on the ball. And that
You've heard it, right? You've heard it, right? I mean, you've heard that sound.
I've heard
It's like the spinning of that when that baseball's spinning like a zzz, that's the sound that I think of. Zzz.
So that's the Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary segment of the show. Find this at a local bookstore near you, 3rd edition, and you can follow along with us. And if you leave a comment in the comments, that's where you leave comments, in the comments.
In the comments section.
Maybe, just maybe, or if you DM Mike at Michael Jones IA on Twitter or Seth_Diewold on Twitter, we may get you one of these Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionaries. Maybe. We'll see. I don't want to make promises.
Definitely. I'm going to make a promise.
Okay.
Definitely the winner of the Long Live Baseball Beat the Streak contest this season will win one of those.
All right.
Whoever has the longest streak during the course of the season on the Beat the Streak part of Long Live Baseball will win the Paul Dixon's Baseball Dictionary.
And join our Beat the Streak. The link to it is going to be in the comments of this video. So as soon as it's posted, you'll be able to see it. You should be able to see it now, actually. So join that. Join our Beat the Streak that Mike has put together. Mike is also putting out daily. That's right. I said daily Beat the Streak content on this channel. So you're going to want to hit like. You're going to want to hit subscribe. You're going to want to hit the alarm bell to be notified when those videos come out. Mike gives you his picks daily. I said, that's right. I'll say it again. Daily. This man does this daily. Daily videos. He has a full-time job. He has a family that he neglects to make these videos, and he does it for you. So hit the subscribe button. Hit it. Hit the subscribe button.
And thank you to Seth, who publishes these things and thumbnails them and puts them all together. And listen, trying to give baseball fans insights, stayaways, all that kind of stuff. And listen, I'm just going to be transparent. Ryan Porth, and whenever I start talking about this, I can never think of the other guy. I can always think of Porth because Porthinator is his nickname. And I nickname everyone like, Sethinator. It's a good nickname thing. But there's another guy that on the Audacity Network used to do a podcast called Beat the Streak Daily. It was awesome. It was the only podcast that honestly I listened to every day. This year, for whatever reason, these guys from The Score are not doing this podcast anymore. And I don't know why. Maybe because nobody cares. I don't know. But maybe that's what they found out, and it was too much work. But I'd love to take it over for them. So, Porth, if you're listening, Ryan Porth, give me the rights to all the things that we're going streaking. Will Ferrell's quote, can I use that? And can I use, Pete Rose's quote, only one guy did it more than me, all that. I'd love to be able to use all that in the background. Anyway, I'm just trying to give you some quick insights and things
that
on
might be a nice summer project for me, is to make an intro for your MLB Beat the Streak, because I honestly hadn't even thought about it until now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
There's so many streaking things that we could put in there, so many quotes. I think we could get away with it from a copyright perspective, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
But do you have any final words of wisdom as we end the show today, Mike?
Hey, just looking forward to being back at Wrigley Field. Yesterday was probably the most beautiful day Chicago's seen this spring. In fact, I know it was. We stopped to see a friend of ours who said, this is the first day I've ridden my bike since winter. And so it was like 78 degrees and sunshine. We got a seat upgrade from Kevin, our great rep, and it was just beautiful. And today is going to be very similar. It looks like it's a little overcast right now, but it looks like it's going to be a very similar day. And so we're looking forward to more live baseball. In the end, we will make a trip here and a trip back. Think about this, for 3 games. And the drive time will be longer than the 3 games combined.
Really? Oh yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That's that hashtag make baseball longer. Hey,
Make baseball slower.
Slower. Yeah, slower. Adam Wainwright is back today. We'll see.
Yeah. Throwing out the first pitch? Throwing out the first pitch, or what's he? Oh, he's coming off the IL. Okay.
He is throwing out the first pitch, so to speak. We'll see how many more pitches after the first one he can throw. But I mean, against the Tigers.
What's he, 40? What is he, 46?
Well, he doesn't have his AARP card yet, but he's working on it. He does sing a mean national anthem, though, I've heard. So he can do that, I mean, as a secondary career. But Adam Wainwright pitches today, and I just want Cardinals fans, obviously things are going about as terrible as they could possibly go. But we do have to keep this in mind. It is still Cardinals baseball. I mean, we've had a great, it's hard to argue with the success the Cardinals have had, as much as I say about my frustrations with the front office. And I think we all have a right to be frustrated with the front office. But it's early. It's still early. We're 33 games in, all right? It's the pitching. Michaelis. I have the most faith in Michaelis, honestly. Matthew Liberatore is still waiting in AAA. We still have these prospects that we can use to make. There's so many options still on the table. You just hope that the Cardinals do something soon. Maybe Wainwright's presence in the starting rotation. I know he doesn't throw hard anymore, but maybe that can stabilize things. But because boy, do they need a stabilizing force in that rotation now. And if Wainwright can do that, even if it's 5 or 6 innings, 2-3 runs, that's what they need. They need quality starts. It ain't rocket science. You just need somebody to go out there and not give up, 10 runs. That's what they need. They can't have what Jack Flaherty did yesterday. And I like Jack Flaherty a lot. But they just need more consistency. And baseball, at its core, is a simple game. You got to hit them where they ain't. You got to miss bats, and you just got to prevent runs from being scored, and you have to score runs yourself. And right now, the Cardinals aren't doing any of that. You have to play good defense. Fundamentally, you have to be sound. They're not doing it, but they're a talented team, and I believe that they're going to be a lot better than they've been playing. So, And of course, it's baseball. We get to watch baseball. And what's better than that? What's better than that, Mike?
I can't think of much. Think of much at all.
So long live baseball. Go Cardinals.
Let's go Cubs.
And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Long live baseball.
Thank you.
Hey, long live baseball,
Long
baby.
live baseball. Let's go.
Long live baseball.
Thank you.
You got it.
Right now.
Long live baseball.